It's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April 23rd here in Korea, live from Seoul. I'm Moon. It's been 1 week now since a nearly 7,000-ton Sewol-ho ferry sank into waters with more than 470 people on board. 150 of them have been confirmed dead so far, and that figure continues to rise by the hour, it seems, as more bodies are retrieved from the sunken vessel. More than 150 remain unaccounted for. Now, search and rescue operations, now in its 8th day down off Korea's southwestern coast, have been in high gear day and night, but not a single survivor has been found since the day of the accident. But as an entire nation mourns the loss of those who were on board the ill-fated ferry, Korean authorities are broadening their investigation on what exactly happened on the day of the ferry capsize and who is responsible for this man-made disaster. Now, several people, including the captain and the crew of the Sewol-ho ferry, have been arrested, and yesterday, one of the arrested crew members said the crew did make an attempt to release some of the life floats but failed because it was impossible to get near them. But screenshots from the scene of the disaster appear to counter those claims. And for this and more, we go live to our Laah Hyun-kyung at the news center. Hyun-kyung.
Well, Kon-young, this is what a crew member said yesterday. Let's take a look.
We tried, but couldn't get near the life floats. We really did try, but it was so slippery that we couldn't get there.
Now, but the pictures released suggest otherwise. Now, while the crew members are busy getting onto rescue boats, a Coast Guard official is hanging tight onto the guardrail trying to release the life floats, and he succeeded. The official was able to kick 2 of the life floats into the sea. There were more than 40 life floats on the Sewol-ho ferry, and these pictures will likely make people ask even more what-if questions. Also, the now arrested crew members claim the ship was listed 90 degrees when the crew were told to evacuate, but those pictures show that it was only listed about 50 degrees. So you can imagine how this will fuel even more anger, not only among the affected family members, but also among the general public as well.
Well, definitely. So now more crew members are now in custody, right?
That's right. 11 out of the 15 crew members who all survived now face criminal charges. Among those is, of course, the captain, Captain Lee Jun-seok. He is charged with 5 offenses, including negligence of duty and violating ship crew law, which mandates the crew to secure the safety of all passengers in emergency situations. The joint investigation team, composed of prosecutors and police officers, are also looking into charging some of the crew with homicide by omission. That's when inaction of the defendant results in someone's death. Investigators say some of the crew have shown signs of regret, admitting to their mistakes and saying, in hindsight, they should have taken rescue measures. And as for the finding, the exact cause of the sinking, investigators are planning on running a simulation, but experts say it will take at least 6 months because basic data, including the vessel's floor plans and speed, will have to be gathered before they build a model ship, and all of that will only be possible after the ship is salvaged.
Right, and the investigation process will be highly or closely watched by the Korean public here. But Hyun-kyung, it's not just the crew members that are in prosecutors' sights. We have been talking about the investigation ongoing on the ferry's operator, the Cheonghaejin Marine Company.
That's right. The Special Prosecutorial Investigative Team raided some 10 offices and homes of the practical owner of the operator, Yoo Byung-eun, earlier today. Prosecutors are closely looking into whether Yoo and his 2 sons have evaded taxes or embezzled funds by making illegal foreign transactions. And Yoo's 2 sons are the biggest shareholders of the ferry operator's holding company, and the Yoo family is said to own assets worth more than $230 million, excluding debt and assets kept outside of the country. The National Tax Service yesterday also launched a special probe into 4 firms that are closely working with Cheonghaejin Marine Company. Dozens of personnel, including Yoo and the 2 sons, are currently under a travel ban imposed by the prosecution, and I will bring you more updates later on our newscast.
All right, that was our Laah Hyun-kyung reporting on the ongoing investigation with regards to the ferry capsize. Now, another piece has been added to the puzzle of what may have caused the Sewol-ho to capsize so abruptly. Local media are reporting that there may have been a problem with the steering gear of the Sewol-ho ferry for weeks leading up to the accident. Our Park Ji-won takes a look.
This is a repair request form submitted by the crew of the Sewol-ho ferry to ferry operator Chung Hae-jin Marine Company about 2 weeks before the tragic accident. It says the steering gear of the now sunken ferry was sending no voltage warnings. Crew members said they had to reset the power and rely on an onboard power supply while they were waiting for power to be restored. The request form added the fundamental cause of the issue was unknown. However, the ferry operator took no action on the issue. Korean broadcaster YTN reported Wednesday that a ship repair company that had worked on the Sewol-ho ferry before said it had not repaired the steering gear of the Sewol-ho ferry any time recently, nor had it received any repair requests about the steering gear. Experts say the steering gear is key to safe sailing for a ship, that any problem in the steering gear increases the likelihood of an accident, and that ships with steering system problems should be prevented from setting sail. However, Chung Hae-jin Marine Company appears to have continued to allow the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry to operate for more than 2 weeks, leading up to the accident last week. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, experts in Japan have run a simulation to try and determine what caused the Sewol-ho to capsize. All signs point to the ferry's cargo, which they believe was not loaded properly. Our Son Jung-in has more.
This is closed-circuit television footage of the Sewol-ho ferry on the day of her departure from Incheon Harbor. Vehicles are loaded onto the vessel one after another, 30 more automobiles than was previously declared. The last vehicle is loaded and just 3 minutes later, the ferry sets sail. Experts say that's not enough time for the crew to correctly secure the freight.
We assume the crew tied only 2 ropes instead of 4. They may have just tied things up loosely before the departure.
Japanese researchers carried out a simulation to find out what happens when freight in a vessel is not fastened up properly. They made a model 1/50th the real size of the Sewol-ho and raised the center of mass in consideration of the fact that the Sewol-ho ferry had been renovated recently. First, they ran the simulation without any cargo. Sailing at 5 kilometers per hour, the same speed as the Sewol-ho, when turned right, the model sharply leaned outward toward the turn due to centrifugal force, but did not capsize. Next, they added some weight to the ship to account for the mass of the freight and fastened it tightly. When given an abrupt turn, the model again tilts sharply to one side, but is able to balance back without falling. Then they tried again, this time with the same amount of weight, but without fixing it properly. At first, it seemed to be navigating smoothly, but as soon as it makes a sharp turn, it listed to one side and capsized in a matter of seconds.
When a vessel makes a sharp turn without its freight properly fastened, a heavier centrifugal force is applied, causing the vessel to list more outward. In extreme cases, the ship can capsize.
It is common for the captain or the chief mate to take at least an hour to make sure all cargo is secure tied before setting sail. Japanese experts say there was no time to do that in the Sewol-ho's case last week, which leads them to believe that improper fastening of the freight may have been the main cause of the accident. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
And over at Pyeongmokhang Harbor in nearby JINDO, this is the closest area from where the accident took place. Search and rescue operations are currently underway in its 8th day. Our Ji Myung-gil is standing by at the site. Myung-gil, what is the latest situation there?
The death toll here is rising fast, and it currently stands at 150. Divers are searching the third and fourth floors of the sunken vessel, where many passengers were believed to have been at the time the ferry sunk. Divers are having a tough time fighting against the strong currents and the low visibility in the water. They are still limited to 20 minutes under the water. More than 150 people remain unaccounted for and are presumably trapped inside the sunken ferry. Of that, the total, nearly 90% are students from Tanon High School. More than 200 rescue ships, 34 aircraft, and 550 divers are continuing their rescue operations. Temporary funeral parlors were set up at the Paekmokhan Harbor today to provide funeral services to the families who lost their loved ones.
It must be a very difficult time for these families. How are they handling this impossibly difficult situation?
It is another day of endless waiting for the bereaved families here at the Paekmokhan Harbor, who are in great despair. I got a chance to talk to a father who lost his son on the Sewol-ho ferry. He said that when they first received the news, he was assured by Tanon High School that his son was alive. He remains one of the missing.
My son was very gentle. He was a quiet boy and never disobeyed us. He would listen to all the things we would say to him as parents. He was very diligent and thoughtful. My son, I feel really sorry for the things I wasn't able to give you. Although sometimes I scolded you, that was because I loved you so much. I love you, Chungmin. It's heartbreaking to think of the horror you must have gone through.
The father said he wanted the sunken vessel to be lifted to the surface as soon as possible so that he could see his 18-year-old son for one last time. This was Kim Young-gil reporting live from Paekmokhan Harbor.
As we can see, it has been a devastating and torturous week for the families of the missing, with nothing to do but really wait for any news of their sons and daughters who were on board this ferry. Now, the families have been staying at an auditorium near the accident site in JINDO, where our Hwang Ji-hae joins us live. Ji-hae.
Kon-young, there are now noticeably fewer relatives here at the JINDO Gymnasium as more bodies are being discovered and identified. The families are leaving to tend to their loved ones at Paekmokhan Harbor or to the hospitals. As soon as families confirm that the recovered bodies are their children or families, they rush out of the gymnasium looking very shaky and horrified. A representative of the families just said that they will be able to use helicopters to move the bodies from Paekmokhan Harbor to hospitals. The atmosphere is very heavy here, with many of the families just helplessly looking at a television screen showing a list of descriptions of the newly discovered bodies. Kon-young?
Right, I can't even begin to imagine how they would feel waiting for that announcement to be made. Now, how are the families left there doing?
The families that are still here are clinging on to hope that there will be survivors. Many are actually they have asked the authorities earlier to wrap up rescue and search operations by this Thursday. There are notes at the entrance of the gymnasium, and one of them reads, "Come back soon, honey, so we can have dinner together." Families of the missing have not given up. Frustrations have boiled over yet again, with the families saying descriptions of the newly discovered bodies were not detailed enough, slowing the procedure of identifying the bodies. Scores of bodies have not sent back home yet. This has been Hwang Ji-hae reporting live from the JINDO Gymnasium.
The entire nation is mourning this abrupt loss of so many lives. Koreans are holding candlelight vigils, making donations on and offline, and really trying to cope with this tragic incident together. Now, in Ansan, the city touched the most by this tragedy, a memorial service is taking place to pay tribute to the young victims from Tanwon High School. We have our Kim Ji-yeon joining us live from the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall. Ji-yeon.
Kon-young, I'm at Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall. An altar was set up so that the public can say their last goodbyes to the fallen. More than 2,600 people came here today to pay their respects. As you can see behind me, portraits of 48 Tanwon High School students and teachers are displayed. This is a temporary altar, and local authorities are trying to set up a group funeral in a larger location, as more bodies are expected to arrive in the coming days. A group funeral will be held at the Hwarang Recreation Hall so that the public can pay their respects starting Tuesday.
Gian, setting up a memorial altar must require a lot of help, and from what I hear, a lot of volunteers are chipping in.
Yes, Kon-young. Well, citizens from Ansan and volunteers from all over the country are coming here to lend a helping hand, bringing necessities and medical supplies.
To help support our community in this time of need, we have made all of our medicine and resources available to Danwon High School, and will continue to do so until the altar is removed.
This could not have been possible with the help of the nation, the community coming together. It really shows that the nation is coming together in times of crisis.
Right, our hearts go out to all the victims and their families. Now, how about the student survivors? Are they going home soon?
Yes, Kon-young, it's been a week in the hospital, and a majority of the students are to be discharged later this week. But 2 out of 10 students are to stay there a little bit longer due to mental trauma. In the high school, around 50 counselors are on standby for the students, and they're to receive regular counseling sessions and, if needed, medication as well. This was Kim Jeon live from the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall.
Now, 14 teachers from Tanwon High School were on the ill-fated trip to the resort island of Jeju when the Sewol-ho ferry sank. On that Wednesday, when the ferry capsized, 3 teachers were rescued while 11 remained unaccounted for. One of those teachers who did not make it was more concerned about her students than herself until the very end. Chun Soo-young is her name, and our Connie Lee has her story.
In the last desperate moments before the ship was going down, a daughter texts her mother, "Mom, the ship is sinking." In shock and in confusion, the mother calls her daughter, Chun Soo-young, right away.
얼른 구명조끼 입어 이렇게 있거든요. 그랬더니 엄마, 학생들은 입었어 이렇게 얘기를 하는 거예요. 그 말은 제가 지금 생각해 보면 학생들은 입혔는데 저는 못 입었다는 얘기죠.
To her boyfriend, Soo-young texts him that there are no life vests. "I'm sorry." The boyfriend calls her immediately, but they hang up after 12 seconds on the line. Soo-young tells him that she needs to call her students' parents.
배가 기울고 있는데 애들 빨리 입히고 챙겨야 된다고 그러더니 자기 배터리 없다고 지금 학부모 연락하고 애들 챙겨야 된다고 그러더니 끊는 거예요.
Her last words to her boyfriend, "I love you and thank you." It was Soo-young's second year as a homeroom teacher at Tanwon High School. And as for the school's yearly field trip, this one to Jeju Island on the Sewol-ho ferry was her first. Her room remains untouched since the day she left for the ill-fated trip. Her bike, too, remains parked, waiting for Soo-young to return. Apparently, her grandmother is also waiting for her granddaughter to come home safely.
지금도 그 할머니는 우리 저 딸이 살아있는 줄 아세요. 뱃속에 들어있어서 안전하다고 그러시거든요. 계속 그렇게 믿고 계세요.
But as much as there is sadness over the loss, her mother is also proud of her daughter, who put the lives of her students before her own. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
On this day, after a week since the ferry sinking, no additional survivors have turned up, only bodies. The public is nonetheless showing its support, keeping hope alive, and a yellow ribbon movement in the online community is symbolizing that help. It sends shouts out, "We are still waiting for you." Polly has more.
This simple image of a yellow ribbon bow has become a symbol of hope in the wake of one of Korea's deadliest maritime disasters. Its message of one small movement that can lead to big miracles has resonated with people across the nation. The Yellow Ribbon Campaign of Hope was first started by a university student club, urging people to unite in their support for those affected by the tragic accident.
It began as a logo being distributed as a KakaoTalk wallpaper, but it spread to other aspects of everyday life that we can see, like tying a yellow ribbon or string on your backpack. Keeping them in your thoughts is also good.
The Yellow Ribbon Campaign has spread online across social networking services such as KakaoTalk, Twitter, and Facebook, with international celebrities and professional athletes also joining in to express their support for the victims. Meanwhile, the story of Park Ji-young, a 22-year-old crew member, has deeply moved the country. According to survivors, Park had refused to take a life jacket and instead kept trying to save passengers till the very end. Her body was one of the first to be recovered from the wrecked ship. An online petition has now attracted tens of thousands of signatures, calling for the government to designate her as a martyr. Once legally recognized for her sacrifice, Park's family will receive financial compensation and benefits, while her body may be buried in the National Cemetery.
Certificates issued by hospital-level medical institutions or police records to prove our actions are most important. In addition, identification documents from fire departments and other authorities are also required.
The Health Ministry says once it receives a formal application for Park, officials will promptly examine her case for review. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Shifting now to other news, North Korea is fully prepared to conduct a nuclear test, and this according to the South Korean government. With the U.S. President Barack Obama having embarked on this Asia tour this Wednesday, there has been fresh speculation North Korea may attempt to make a statement while Obama is in the region in the form of a fourth nuclear test. For more on this, Shin Se-min reports.
South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea is ready to conduct a nuclear test at any time. In a press briefing Wednesday, a Ministry of National Defense official said the North Punggye-ri nuclear test site appears to be on standby with an open ticket in hand. This would run counter to what a recent report by the U.S.-based North Korea analysis site 38 North suggests. It says it's unlikely that the regime will carry out a fourth nuclear test while U.S. President Barack Obama is visiting the region over the next week. The report cited analysis of satellite imagery, which indicates the recent activities at the nuclear site differ from those leading up to past tests. But a Korean official said the data on the 38 North website is different from what the government has. The U.S. says it is keeping close watch on movements in the North amid speculation that it may carry out a fourth nuclear test. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, White House spokesman Jay Carney said the U.S. is monitoring movements at the North Punggye-ri nuclear test site. The U.S. State Department echoed Carney's sentiment and urged North Korea to exercise restraint.
We continue to urge North Korea to refrain from actions that threaten regional peace and security and to comply with its international obligations and commitments.
Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
It's been over a week since the Sewol-ho ferry capsized, and the search and rescue operation down there continues, and it's in its 8th day. The weather has been playing a big factor, and apparently today the weather is pretty favorable for search and rescue efforts. Let's now turn to our Michelle Park for more. Michelle, the conditions today there.
Well, like you said, Kanyang, the weather in JINDO has brightened up and the area has clear skies currently due to a high pressure front with a visibility of 11 kilometers, which is fairly looking good. Now, also today is the second day of NEAP tide periods, during which we can expect the sea currents to dip into their lowest levels, putting the height down to around 1 meters. Now, these conditions will last until Thursday, and until then, the search of the vessel is likely continue for 24 hours. Now, also along with the NEAP tides, there are periods when the tides will be slow, and one passed a few hours ago. And during this period, the tides will drop to below half a meter for an hour, giving the rescuers an easier time in the search operations. Now, the current temperature of the water in JINDO is at 11.6 degrees with winds blowing at 6 meters per second, and the night height of the wave is at 0.7 meters, which are generally calmer than yesterday. Well, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park-em. Back to you, Kanyang.
Thank you, Michelle, for that. And that's all from me at this hour. Our steady coverage on the nation's search and rescue efforts in Korea's ferry disaster continues here on ARIRANG News. Join me again at the top of the hour.